My name is Dean. I'm a recovering addict, and this is Inside Addiction. My guest today is Eileen. Eileen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
First things first, I want to congratulate you coming up on 30 years sober.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's go backwards a little bit to 40 years ago.
Okay.
Tell me how it was growing up.
Okay. 40 years ago, I was 10 years old. So I was in the 5th grade. My brother was around 8, and my sister was 2. And being the oldest, it seems like I naturally took on being a big sister / mommy to my little sister. There was a good age difference there, but there was always a conflictual relationship with my brother. But growing up, grew up with a father who was alcoholic, had chronic physical issues because of his drinking, and I'm sure clinical depression, because of his childhood and the trauma he went through. And, us kids kind of like intuitively knew he was sick. So, and then my mother was, your classic wife of an alcoholic, basically was focused on him, caught up in him, emotionally unavailable to us kids. I did have a grandmother, my mother's mother, that lived with us, and she was like my refuge. She was very laid back, and she was partially deaf, so I don't know, it was just quiet with her, and peaceful, and but it was lonely. I felt, when I think back, and like even now in different points, feeling lonely, that's like a old feeling, so felt lonely because I felt like I really didn't have parents. Had a lot of aunts and uncles, nice Irish Catholic, parties every weekend, and
here we go, set
yeah,
it up.
there it is, exactly. Actually, that was set up before I was 10, though. But that made it fun. Had a lot of cousins, and that's basically how, the things to look forward to. I suppose I didn't feel alone when I was with my cousins.
Sure.
I really didn't. There was such a bond there. There was 7 of us that, with the last 3 aunts, there was 7 kids between them, and we're all like a year apart, right down the line. So there definitely was a bond there. And as I got older, they wound up like being my best, drinking buddies, is what it came down to. Like my best. It was the most fun. Then we got to think when we were little, and Saturday mornings, and the ice cubes melted in the leftover drinks, and we're going around drinking them up, and not realizing you had to melt butter with popcorn. So putting the popcorn in the stick of butter didn't, all this stuff hanging out. So there was the compensating for the, I guess it was pain. It was painful watching, knowing my father was sick, and knowing that the drinking had a lot to do with eating his insides out. That's exactly what happened. So growing up, there was the good and the bad, I guess. The wicked humor of the on the Irish Catholic side. And then my father's side, there was a very stoic, I don't want to say cold, but kind of feeling a disconnect there. Like he called his mother, and they called him by his formal name, Richard, where my mother's family called him Rich, and, they embraced him. She was the baby in her family, and they were 14 when they got together. So they were kids, and she had all older, siblings, but they just loved him, and from the time he was a teenager. So called my grandmother, Ma, so you just tell he kind of blended in. And then when he passed away, it was like my mother's family took it so hard, just really, and that was 25 years ago this summer. when he passed away, and it's still, like the pain is still there, like the grief, I guess. It still lingers strongly because he was 44, and it was like a tragedy. It really was, because of how much people loved him, the kind of guy he was. But so growing up, yeah, it was...
Good memories?
Yeah, a lot of good memories.
Sports, grades in school?
In the top of my class until, I don't know, 11th grade, when I got a part-time job. I was old enough so I had my own money, and then that's when the drinking increased, I suppose. But still maintained, honor student, in band, in clubs, played volleyball, had a lot of friends. I knew most people in my class, and behind and ahead of me too. So I've always been, like, in spite of the loneliness, I guess, like, always a people person. So, and it helps with, the work I do too. So, but, yeah, so, school was a positive thing.
So looking back, as you were growing up, can you see now, looking back, and identify kind of like, this is when my drinking kind of started? Not even getting out of hand, so to say, but like looking back now, this is when that's a sign.
Yeah. Well, there was a couple of situations that it wasn't, thinking about my first drink. I'm thinking more, and I tell this in my story when I share. Well, I found out anyway, when I was a baby in the 60s, they had this stuff called paregoric, which they would put in the baby's bottle and help them go to sleep. Come to find out, Googling that, it's a narcotic. It's like in the opium family. So, I think I was set up to, want something that calmed me down and put me to sleep. And then, like I said, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, going around, drinking the leftover drinks and taking sips off daddy's beer. And then around, 12 years old comes to mind. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and going in the bathroom and drinking cough syrup.
Wow. At 12 years old.
Yeah, it felt like it was about 12. And chugging it, because of course, why use a tablespoon to measure it? Just that was probably a little alcoholic thinking. But I still do that too, though. But it's non-alcoholic cough syrup, because back then, they probably had opium in the Robitussin. But I know they had alcohol in it anyway. And I remember, chugging however much of the little bottle, and then sitting on the edge of the tub and just feeling all warm inside and loving it.
Right.
So. I didn't even know.
Off to the races.
Yeah. And then probably I picked up my first drink, I'd say, consciously knowing it's, alcohol with my friends, probably 15, 10th grade or so.
So how did it progress from age 15 in the 10th grade to, the point where it got out of hand? Like, tell me about the progression of the drinking.
Well, when I had those first couple of drinks, I remember like twirling around in the middle of the street, just, wow, this is kind of a, new, weird, good feeling. And I just remember wanting to do more of it, And then there was all kinds of parties, confirmation parties. Let's see, 10th grade, that was around then. Just hanging out with friends, and...
Doing what 10th graders do.
Yeah, kind of. I think, let's see, that was right before I started a part-time job at 16. So then having, our own money, going to the liquor store, back then it was 18. They didn't really, and we had fake IDs anyway.
Yeah.
So, because then we wanted to go to the clubs, it needed the fake IDs. Had a friend, of course, that did that. Go to the liquor store, buy whatever. And I remember one time in particular was probably 11th grade more, and I just remember being Jack Daniels, like a fifth of Jack Daniels, and like sharing it with my best friend, who's this beautiful girl. Who would have thought that, us two girls would be chugging Jack Daniels on the bike path at Lock 7, on our hands and knees, thinking that's a good time. crawling up the bike path, throwing up, laying down, blacking out, and it was just more of that and more of that. And then, really kind of that, thinking back in high school, that became my focus. It was about going out or doing something involving alcohol, and then my senior year added a little marijuana to it, but not just here and there. And not realizing after smoking it why, with another friend, we were laughing hysterically and rolling down a hill in one of these woods parties where they get a keg and everything. And then walking, I don't know how many miles to like a Pizza Hut. I guess the munchies kicked in. I don't know, but I think that's what happened.
Right.
And then, so it was just, the progression, just drinking more. And I remember one time, being that we're in Schenectady, for whatever reason, my senior year, drinking in Schenectady, whatever bars were around back then. It was like a lot of rock and roll stuff back then. And I lived in Colony, grew up in Colony, and I remember driving home from Schenectady drunk. I don't know how many times, 4 times a week driving drunk. And driving, coming up Central Avenue, must have went into a blackout, and then came to, all of a sudden I'm like awake, and I'm on the opposite side of Central Avenue. And that didn't only happen one time. So I just remember 3:30 in the morning, and thank God there wasn't a whole lot of traffic, but, and just like it not realizing how like life-threatening that was. Just like not having any, like, it's like, oh, wow, this is what happened. It was a little scary, but it was just another story to tell.
Yeah.
Of, back then it was like, oh, we were so drunk, and, this, that, and they did this, and I did this, and, so that's what it was about.
So at what point did you realize, hey, this is a problem, and maybe I need to look at this? At what point did that happen?
Probably, because I didn't think there was anything wrong. I thought that everybody had blackouts.
Yeah.
The people I hung with I could definitely drink like they did. They drank like I did. Some drank worse, Some
so you're
had,
surrounded by people that are doing the same thing you
exactly.
are. So it normalizes it. What's the problem?
Exactly. So that, you said, what did, realizing it became a problem. Probably, it was probably March 83. It was about 9 months before I got sober. I got a DWI.
After all those times driving down Central Avenue, blacking out on the wrong side.
And then actually, I wasn't even in a blackout. I was speeding, actually, on Wolf Road.
Just out of curiosity, if you were going to put an estimate on how many times you drove drunk before you got arrested for DWI, not to put you on the spot, what would you say, conservatively?
Hundreds
of times.
I wouldn't say hundreds, maybe 100 times. Because you're figuring probably 4 times a week.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that? 15, that's 200 right there for 1 year.
Yeah.
So quite a few times.
So you get a DWI, finally.
Yeah. It was a low BAC. And
you get a low BAC.
And then I'm mad because it's like, well, my best friend can drink more than me. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Poor me. I'm a victim.
So you get a DWI, and you think at that point, maybe I've got a problem.
Yeah, well, standing in front of
Somebody
the judge,
the
and
judge
my father,
I
remember getting arrested and looking all cute in the mug shots and laughing, getting all the cops to laugh, and just having a good old time. But the reality of calling my father, because I wouldn't call my mother, because we call our father, no matter what. And when he picked me up, not a word, didn't say a word, and I'm like, aren't you gonna yell at me? And he was like, you're probably doing more of a number on yourself than I could ever do. So that kind of, because it was, like a baseline thing, who I was during, it wasn't the real me, it was part of who I was.
Sure.
But I get, your parents know you from and
Completely.
who you really are,
Yeah.
so he knew, that in spite of all that front I had that, bothered me, because I was a good girl, or was set up to be that way growing up. So yeah, that's when I kind of thought, and then of course played the goody two shoes and, dressed with, like a nice plaid preppy skirt from, across the street from Siena where I was in college then, a little pearl necklace, played the part and did what you were required to do for DMV.
But you said that was 9 months before you got sober.
Yes.
So in between the point that you got the DWI and the 9 months of your sober date, tell me how that was for you.
It was.
Your drinking stopped for a while.
No.
Didn't stop for a while.
No,
Got worse.
Didn't stop. It might have slowed down a little, but then that was short lived.
Yeah.
And just the same. Like then at that point it was. It switched over from like rock and roll bars to like dancing places, so clubs, because we had to go out dancing. And of course Tuesday nights was ladies' night and Reflections and Waterville Elite. Wednesday nights was ladies' night at Rockwell's and Latham.
Yeah.
Thursday night was ladies' night at Behind the Golden Fox.
Every night's ladies' night.
Friday's Friday. Saturday.
Yeah, we don't need an
Sunday we went to
excuse.
the home bar,
Yeah.
versus a home group in recovery.
You didn't even mention the whole, back in the day, I remember the drinking with Lincolns, which is great for the alcoholic, $5 for a cup.
Oh, drinking with, that was it. $5 all you can drink.
Ladies' night
Yeah.
for the next
Yeah, and then we
9
thought we
months.
were so, yeah, definitely. It was all about us.
So tell me about your sober date. 9 months after that DWI.
Okay.
What was
December 2nd, 1983, which is usually the first week after Thanksgiving, because the Wednesday before Thanksgiving,
Forget about
the best night of
Absolutely.
the year to be out. People
Yeah.
are home from college.
Yep.
It's the best night to be out. So the drinking Tuesday for ladies' night, but then Wednesday,
Thanksgiving Eve.
and then Thursday, dying, and then just waiting, going to mom's for the turkey, take a nap, and, 9 o'clock, getting all dressed up, the whole bit. Out again, Friday, and then with friends, and just really, really, really did it up that Saturday. I remember the place was Coco's. They had these, he's laughing, he must know, these huge, like you could get like a frozen daiquiri or something like that, and who probably took a pint of rum to
Instant
the
DWI.
size of it. Oh yeah, instant blackout. So they had these huge things, and I remember standing at the bar, doing whatever, drinking obviously, and then all of a sudden I'm in the bathroom, don't remember walking there, then in the car, then in the elevator in the apartment complex I lived in with my best friend at the time, and just it was the different, all the times I had blacked out, that was the night where they were longer, and then it scared me. Like when I came, it was very scary to like be that out of control, I guess is what it comes down to. Like you're literally out of control because who knows what you're doing in that blackout. So, and then that Sunday of the Thanksgiving weekend, being that boyfriend of the month house, and just like, I always say I was like a wet noodle on the floor, like could not move all day. It was horrible, a horrible hangover. It was horrible. And of course that famous, I am never gonna do this
the
again.
foxhole prayers. Let me get through this and I'll never do it again.
And then, so that was Sunday, and then all during the week, didn't do any of the ladies' nights, but then Friday came and, said, well, I'm gonna go out, I won't bring any money, and back then I was about this big and blonde, so it was like it didn't take much.
It's ladies' night, so the guys are there.
Yeah, it didn't take much to
don't
get
need
somebody,
any money.
the bartender, give you one.
Yeah.
So, and he gave me a glass of wine, or I got a glass of wine, and I looked at this glass of wine and I thought about the weekend before. I thought about how it destroyed my parents' marriage, how my father left, how my father was sick from it. thought about all the things that alcohol had done, a DWI, like my life of alcoholism in every aspect, looked at that wine and then drank it anyway. And when it went down, it was like the Robitussin. It just went down. It was warm. It felt so good. And it was like, you can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Just done.
So would you say that was it? That was
it.
Or bottom, if we were going to
That
say
was
it
it.
was a bottom?
Yep. Because it was like fast forward to the reality, all of the reality, it seemed like. So that was...
And you were 19 years old then?
20.
20 years old then?
Yeah.
So...
From 15 to 20, I did like 20 years of drinking.
And it sounds to me like right from the jump, you were a blackout drinker.
Yeah.
So at 20 years old, you get sober.
Yeah.
You get sober, do you go to treatment? Do you just get sick and tired of being sick and tired and you're like, that's it, I'm done, this isn't working for me?
Nope. I was actually in counseling when my parents had split up. I don't know, like a year and a half before that or so. My mother went into a program for codependency, or the wife of, basically.
Sure.
And then it turned into the mother of, because my brother had issues with drinking, and he actually went into alcohol treatment. It was outpatient, but he had went, and I was in the group for adult children of alcoholics, they call it. Like being affected by your parents drinking. And I was very bonded with the people in the group, and extremely bonded with the therapist. Like she was like a replacement for my grandmother. She was a comfort, you know. And I stayed with her for years. She even left the agency and I went with her. But I can tell the story I told you.
You tell any story you want.
All right. So I'm in the group, and I was saying something about, cause still that braggadocious kind of stuff about what we did drunk, and talked about being in the blackout, and it was probably the group in between the noodle and that last glass of wine. I think it might have been the Wednesday night that I didn't go to ladies' night, but was recovering from Tuesdays. But and I said, talking about the blackout, and then one of the ladies who was in recovery, she was probably in her mid-20s, late 20s, and she basically was saying, well, you got a problem, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I didn't eat before we were drinking. What was it? I said, oh, my period was coming, like just, and she said, well, blackouts are a symptom of alcoholism, not PMS.
And it's not like you only drank once a month.
No, not at all, not at all. So that was kind of, and then after that wine, and then another thing which is so funny, I got to tell this story. The summer of 11th grade, my best friend's family had like a timeshare condominium in Hilton Head Island. Gorgeous, all these rich people, and myself, her brother, his friend, so the four of us walked from this beautiful condominium place on the seashore of Hilton Head Island, and we walked miles into town to find something to drink. And going into the refrigerated, whatever the refrigerator carries, has all the stuff in it, and on the top shelf was this wine. So I think I was kind of like a wino anyway, but took this wine and paid for it, and I was like, there was so much of it for such a cheap price. It was like, what a bargain this is. And then when I drank it, it was like, you couldn't tell me it wasn't like Dom Perignon or something. Come to find out, it was Thunderbird, which is like, might as well be Wild Irish Rose to the wino somewhere. And it's funny.
This is good stuff.
Oh yeah, Thunderbird, right? And then there's funny because at the meetings, somebody will say Thunderbird, or what's the word? Thunderbird. And it's like, wow, that'll show you from the, the right down to the bottom of the barrel. But you could not tell me that, and probably drank the whole thing. I'm
Living
sure.
the good life.
Yeah, and it wasn't a little pint. It was.
Eileen, we got about 5 minutes left, so I want to talk about, to me, 30 years sober.
Yeah.
in the span of 30 years, I can't imagine, life experiences, life on life's terms, different feelings that come up, happy, mad, sad, glad, the loss of loved ones. In 30 years, what are some of the challenges, really that stick out significantly where, if not you, maybe you've heard of other people's sobriety, abstinence has been tested, and like you just took it one day at a time and just didn't pick up.
Right.
Is there anything that sticks out in your mind across the past 30 years where really you thought ever once, a drink will make this better?
A couple of weeks ago, just like a lot of changes in my life. I'm 50 years old. That's obviously an age of reflection.
Yeah.
And, I have a grandchild that's a year old, and, emotionally and just being responsible, independent, and it just seemed like, God, I just need a break. Can I just sit down and somebody have my back? And it just seemed like it was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is like life. It's my life.
Yeah.
But it was like, I don't want to do this. I'm tired of this, and all kinds of feelings for, that's a whole other show. But, so it was like, I just want to get fucked up. Yeah, oh, sorry.
It's all good.
Bleep. Sorry, but that's the way I feel. It doesn't go, I want a little drink. I
those are
I
feelings.
want to go A to Z.
How'd you get through that without picking up?
Went to a meeting.
Went to a meeting,
talked about it, and my home group, they play cards after, on Friday and Saturday nights. So I just stayed there, and I said, I'm just going to do an all-nighter. I'm going to go to the midnight meeting in Schenectady, hang out with Frown. 9 o'clock, I was shot. I went home.
Yeah.
I was good.
Yeah.
So, and the desire to drink doesn't come, like, really at all. Like, there's only been a handful of times I can think over the 30 years, because I was done, and, like they say in AA, I wanted what the people had.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a part of something, belong, love. And I have that solid, I have history, obviously 30 years. I have history with so many people for the things we went through together. Probably the most significant thing that has happened in my recovery that has always been a challenge is the loss of my father. I was like 5 years sober when he passed away, and it's always been hard. Especially this time, it was the early summer. He passed away, so that I always get in the heat. I always get weird.
So we got a couple minutes left. That's your camera right there. Someone's watching that's still sick and suffering. Somebody that's still out there. Somebody that's struggling. Getting through the hours, say the least, of one day at a time. Somebody that obviously has been there, done that, talk the talk, walk the talk. Or walk the walk, 30 years sober. What advice would you give to someone that's still sick and suffering, that's struggling with their addiction, or someone that cares about someone that's currently struggling with their addiction?
Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to go to the places, because there's so much help out there, and you can go right in the phone book, ask where you can go, ask who can help. Because it's recovery is all over, especially the Capital District. It's a really great, it's a hubbub of recovery, really. And there's people, you would never imagine what life is without drinking, so it's worth it. And life is life, and, just don't be afraid to reach out, or don't feel ashamed. Don't feel ashamed, because you're not alone.
Eileen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Dean from Inside Addiction, reminding you of some upcoming events to celebrate sobriety during September's Recovery Month in and around the Capital District. Starting on Wednesday, September 11th, recovery comedian Mark Ludholm returns to the Capital District from 6 to 9 p.m. for a dinner and comedy show at Taste Restaurant, 45 Beaver Street in Albany. Tickets are still available, and you can call 518-465-5829. Thursday, September 12th, the 23rd Annual Treatment Works March. Come out to support friends and families in recovery. It starts at 1 p.m. at Spark 2nd Avenue, which is located at 64 2nd Avenue in Albany. Saturday, September 28th, the Addictions Care Center of Albany, ACCA, proudly presents their Start Smart Field Day. That's at 90 McCarty Avenue in Albany from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is a free community event to kick off the 2013-14 ACCA Prevention Education Program in area schools. Events are going to include a petting zoo, food, balloon art, a magic show, arts and crafts, free book giveaways, music, a bouncy house, carnival games, clowns, and more. Winding down September's Recovery Month, join us Sunday, September 29th at the Corning Preserve in Albany from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Friends of Recovery New York, One Community, One Voice, proudly presents their annual Recovery Rally and Fine Arts Festival. You can check us out online at www.insideaddiction.org or watch our entire series at youtube.com/insideaddiction or right here on this channel.